Human kid offers toy to lonely alien child. 500 fierce warriors respond the next day. Opening, the quiet edge of the galaxy. At the far edge of map space, where the stars thinned and trade routes died young, there was a station no one lingered on. Outpost K-317 was built for utility, not comfort. Cold alloy corridors. Dim lights. Gravity that hummed instead of settled. It existed for one reason only: to keep humans and the Kraith from misunderstanding each other again. The Kraith were a warrior species. Tall, broad-shouldered, skin like dark stone traced with glowing ember veins. Their culture revolved around strength, honor, and blood debt. They respected only three things: victory, sacrifice, and children. Not in the human way. Kraith children were rare, precious, and raised communally by warriors who had survived at least 3 battles. To lose a child was not just tragedy, it was a failure of the entire clan. Humans, on the other hand, humans were everywhere now. Too fast, too curious, too soft, according to Kraith doctrine. So when a joint resettlement program placed human civilian families on K-317, including children, the Kraith did not protest. They simply watched and waited for weakness to show. Rising conflict, the child no one spoke to. 6-year-old Noah Reyes didn't understand any of that. He just knew the station was lonely. His father worked long shifts, maintaining life support conduits. His mother monitored supply traffic. And Noah spent most days sitting on the observation ring, legs dangling, watching ships pass like slow-moving stars. That's where he first saw the alien kid. The Kraith child sat alone at the far end of the ring, smaller than the adults, thinner. His ember veins barely glowed, a sign of emotional withdrawal. Noah would later learn. The child's posture was rigid, hands folded the way soldiers did. No one sat near him. Not humans. Not Kraith. Because something terrible had happened. 3 cycles earlier, the Kraith child's warband had been wiped out during a border skirmish. His parents, his mentors, his entire clan line. By Kraith custom, he was now unclaimed. And until a new warband accepted him, he was no one. Noah didn't know any of that. He just saw a kid who looked sad. Human response, a small act, a huge mistake. Noah dug into his pocket. His fingers wrapped around a small, battered object, a toy starship, its paint chipped, one wing bent from too many imaginary crashes. It was his favorite. He stood up, heart pounding, and walked across the ring. Every Kraith adult noticed. Conversation stopped. Hands lowered toward weapons, not in threat, but in readiness. The unclaimed child looked up. Golden eyes locked onto Noah. Kraith children were taught to never show fear. But confusion? That was allowed. Noah held out the toy. "Hi," he said. "You looked lonely." The station went silent. The Kraith child stared at the object like it was a live grenade. Among the Kraith, gifts were never given lightly. A gift was a vow, a promise of protection, a declaration of intent. The child didn't take it. Noah smiled anyway and gently placed the toy on the floor between them. "You can have it," he said. "I've got others." Then he turned and walked away. Didn't wait for thanks. Didn't wait for approval. He just went back to his seat. Behind him, the Kraith child picked up the toy. And for the first time since his clan died, his ember veins flared bright. Rising conflict, the night of silence. That night, the Kraith sent no messages. No protests. No threats. No diplomatic signals. The human administrators were uneasy. Was it an insult? One asked. A provocation? Another whispered. No one knew, except the Kraith. Because among their people a child offering a possession, especially one clearly cherished, was the purest form of courage. It meant, I have little, but I will still share. And that was a warrior's heart. Climax. 500 warriors arrive. The next morning, K-317's long-range sensor screamed. 500 Kraith warships exited hyperspace in perfect formation. Human alarms blared. Defense systems powered up. Civilians were ordered into shelters. Noah's parents grabbed him, fear written across their faces. "What did you do?" his mother whispered, trembling. Noah frowned. I gave him my ship. The Kraith fleet did not attack. Instead, a single transmission broadcast across all channels. A massive Kraith warlord appeared on screen, scarred, ancient, eyes burning like dying suns. We come, he said, to answer a debt. A landing force deployed. 500 warriors marched through the station, not with weapons raised, but with heads bowed. They stopped in front of Noah. The unclaimed child stepped forward, clutching the toy starship. This human, the child said, voice shaking but strong, saw me when no one else would. The warlord knelt. So did every warrior behind him. We claim this child, the warlord said, meaning both of them. Any who threaten him, threaten us all. Resolution: what strength really is. From that day on, Noah had escorts, not guards, brothers. The Kraith trained him, protected him, listened when he spoke. And when humans and Kraith later stood side by side in wars that would shake the sector, the Kraith told this story first. Not of a battle, not of a victory, but of a small human child who offered a broken toy and reminded a warrior race what strength truly meant. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. The aftermath no one expected. Outpost K-317 did not return to normal. It couldn't. 500 Kraith warriors now occupied its outer rings, their massive forms moving with disciplined calm through corridors that had never been designed for beings like them. Their armor scraped bulkheads. Their footsteps made the deck plate sing. But there was no violence, no threats, only vigilance. Human administrators expected tension, fear, at best an uneasy ceasefire. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented. The Kraith warriors adapted. They adjusted their routes to avoid human residential sectors. They learned the names of human children. They stood watch during station night cycles without being asked. And at the center of it all was one small human boy, Noah Reyes, a warrior's promise. The Kraith warlord who had knelt before Noah was named Viacor Flamebound, veteran of 9 planetary sieges and survivor of 3 extinction wars. Among his people, Viacor was a living legend. Among humans, he was terrifying, towering over Noah's parents, his ember veins glowing faintly beneath dark stone-like skin. Viacor spoke with a voice like grinding rock. The child is under our protection, he said. Noah's father swallowed. Sir, with respect, he's just a kid. Viacor lowered himself slightly, bringing his burning eyes level with Noah's. So was the last warrior who saved my life, he replied. Noah looked up at him, unafraid. Are you mad at me? Noah asked. A ripple of shock passed through the Kraith ranks. Viacor blinked. No, he said slowly. We are grateful. That word had not been spoken in the Kraith tongue for over a century. Human confusion, alien certainty. Human leadership scrambled to respond. Emergency calls flooded diplomatic channels. Analysts argued. Psychologists tried to make sense of what had happened. How does a toy trigger a military response? One counselor demanded. It wasn't the toy, a xenologist replied quietly. It was the intent. Humans gave gifts casually. The Kraith never did. To them, Noah hadn't offered plastic and paint. He had offered belonging, and belonging was worth fighting for. The unclaimed finds his name. The Kraith child no longer sat alone. He walked beside Noah now, clutching the toy starship everywhere he went. He learned human words quickly, fascinated by how casually humans laughed, how easily they shared. One evening, as they sat together watching ships drift past the viewport, Noah asked, "What's your name?" The alien hesitated. Unclaimed children did not use their old names. But after a moment, he said quietly, "I was called Ray-Tin." Noah smiled. "That's cool. I'm Noah." Ray-Tin studied him. "Why did you give me your ship?" Noah shrugged. "You looked like you needed it more than me." Ray-Tin thought about that for a long time. That night, his ember veins glowed brighter than they ever had. Warriors watching a child learn. Kraith warriors are trained from early youth. Pain tolerance, combat reflexes, emotional control. They believe children learn through hardship. Humans believed children learned through safety. What the Kraith saw next unsettled them deeply. They saw Noah fall and cry, and get back up because someone encouraged him. They saw him argue, not with fists, but with words. They saw him apologize when he was wrong. To the Kraith, strength had always meant endurance. Humans showed them something else. Resilience. The test no one announced. 3 weeks later, the test came. Pirates. Not human. Not Kraith. A scavenger fleet that had been watching the situation unfold from the shadows, drawn by the presence of 500 elite warriors and the assumption that something valuable was being protected. They were wrong. They attacked K-317 during a routine cargo transfer. Human alarms blared. Civilians scrambled. Security teams mobilized, underpowered and outmatched. And before anyone could issue an order, the Kraith moved. 500 warriors answer a debt. Kraith warships launched in perfect unison. No battle cries. No threats. Just action. Human sensors struggled to track the speed and coordination of the response. Pirate vessels were disabled with surgical precision, engines severed, weapons neutralized. Hulls breached just enough to force surrender. Not a single civilian was harmed. On the station, Kraith ground forces positioned themselves between the pirates and human shelters. VA Corps stood at the forefront. Behind him, Noah watched through a reinforced viewport. Ray-Tin stood beside him, gripping the toy starship. "Are they going to die?" Noah asked softly. Ray-Tin shook his head. "Not unless they refuse mercy." The pirates surrendered in under 6 minutes. It was the cleanest defensive action K-317 had ever recorded. A question that shook a warrior. After the battle, VA Corps found Noah in the observation ring. "You were afraid," the warlord said. Noah nodded. "Yeah." "But you stayed." "Yeah." VA Corps crouched, armor creaking. "Why?" Noah thought for a moment. "Because if I ran, everyone else would be more scared." The warlord went very still. Among the Kraith, fear was hidden. Among humans, fear was acknowledged and faced anyway. That night, VA Corps recorded a message to his homeworld. "We have misunderstood strength." When the galaxy starts watching, news spread, not of the pirates, not of the battle, but of the reason behind it. A human child, a lonely alien, 500 warriors answering kindness. Across the sector, species who had once dismissed humans as fragile began to reassess. They did not see conquerors. They saw something far more dangerous. A species that could inspire loyalty, without fear. End of part 2. And this was only the beginning. Because when war finally came to the sector, real war, the Kraith would remember one thing above all else. Not the fleets, not the fire, not the victories, but a human child who offered a broken toy and changed the meaning of honor forever. The galaxy notices patterns. Empires don't fear weapons first. They fear patterns. Within 2 standard months of the incident at Outpost K-317, analysts across the sector began to notice something unsettling. Where humans went, things changed. Trade stations that once simmered with tension became neutral grounds. Border worlds stabilized. Old grudges cooled, not erased, but paused. And wherever humans settled alongside other species, violence dropped. Not because humans were strong, but because others behaved differently around them. The Kraith called it the quiet effect. Human diplomats called it rapport. The Vesh collective called it strategic contamination. And the Threxian hegemony called it unacceptable. The Threxians make their move. The Threxians were everything the Kraith respected, and everything humans feared. Cold-blooded, expansionist, utterly pragmatic. To the Threxians, empathy was inefficiency. Children were assets. Allies were temporary. Mercy was weakness. They had watched K-317 carefully. 500 Kraith warriors, once isolated and insular, now protecting humans. That was a shift. And shifts, left unchecked, became precedents. So the hegemony decided to make an example. A threat delivered quietly. The warning came as a single encrypted message to Outpost K-317. No fleet, no posturing, no rhetoric, just coordinates, and a timestamp. VA Core read the message twice, then a third time. Then he closed his eyes, a gesture Kraith only used when facing inevitable loss. They are challenging us, he said to the human command staff. Not with war, with choice. Commander Halvorsen frowned. Explain. They will strike a civilian transport, VA Core said. One with mixed species, humans included. If we intervene, they declare us allies of humanity, enemies of the hegemony. And if you don't, Halvorsen asked quietly. VA Core opened his eyes. Then the children die. Noah overhears what he shouldn't. Humans thought Noah was asleep. He wasn't. Children often aren't. He sat on his bunk, hugging his knees, listening through the thin bulkhead as adults whispered words they thought he couldn't understand. Transport. Hostages. Unavoidable losses. Noah didn't know politics, but he knew what it sounded like when people were about to give up. He slipped out of bed, walked barefoot through the corridor, and stopped when he saw Ray Tin sitting against the wall, holding the toy starship. You heard too, Noah said. Ray Tin nodded slowly. They will ask us to choose, the Kraith child said. My people believe choice reveals worth. Noah sat beside him. What do you think? Noah asked. Ray Tin stared at the toy for a long time. Then he said very softly, I think my people forgot something. The Warrior Council fractures. The Kraith War Council convened in the station's largest hangar. 500 warriors stood in a ring of burning light. VA Core spoke first. The debt remains, he said. The child is under our protection. So are his people. A younger war captain stepped forward, ember veins flaring bright. And if that protection costs us our worlds, he demanded. Our species. A murmur spread. This was the heart of the matter. Protect the humans and invite annihilation. Stand aside and break the oldest vow of their kind. VA Core looked around the circle. Once, he said, we believed strength meant survival at any cost. He gestured toward Noah and Ray Tin, standing together at the edge of the hangar. And yet, survival without honor made us hollow. Silence. Then the youngest warrior in the circle, barely past his first blooding, knelt. For the child, he said. Another knelt. Then another. Until the sound of armor hitting deck plates echoed like thunder. 500 warriors. One choice. The trap is sprung. The civilian transport Silver Dawn drifted exactly where the Threxians predicted. Engines limited. Defenses light. Families aboard. When the Threxian fleet decloaked, panic spread through the ship. Distress calls screamed into the void. And then, hope. Kraith warships emerged from hyperspace. Human escort vessels followed. The Threxians did not retreat. They smiled, in the way predators do. This is your final lesson, their commander broadcast. Kindness does not scale. A battle fought differently. The battle that followed confused every strategist who later studied it. The Kraith did not charge. The humans did not overwhelm. Instead, they coordinated. Human ships shielded the transport, taking hits they could barely withstand. Kraith warships struck only when necessary, disabling, not destroying. And in the chaos, something unheard of happened. Human medics boarded damaged Threxian vessels. Not to fight, to help. Threxian soldiers stared in disbelief as their wounded were treated by the enemy. Why? One demanded. A human medic answered without looking up. Because you're hurt. That moment would echo through Threxian doctrine for decades. The cost of standing tall. Victory was not clean. 2 Kraith ships were lost. A human escort frigate broke apart, shielding the transport. Lives were lost. But the children survived. When the battle ended, the Threxian commander retreated, not in rage, but in something far more dangerous. Uncertainty. The question that changes everything. After the battle, Vikor stood with Noah in the observation ring again. You may have doomed us, the warlord said quietly. Noah's lip trembled. I'm sorry. Vikor shook his head. No, he said. I am proud. He placed a massive hand over his chest. You showed us that honor is not what we defend, but who. Across the sector, the story spread faster than any fleet. Humans did not conquer. They connected. And that frightened the galaxy more than any weapon ever had. The Threxians do not forget. The Threxian hegemony did not respond with rage. That alone unsettled everyone. They did not launch reprisals. They did not sever trade lanes. They did not issue threats. Instead, they called for a convergence. A sector-wide assembly. Neutral ground. Open channels. Every major power invited. It was framed as diplomacy. Everyone knew better. The Threxians had lost something far more valuable than ships. They had lost certainty. And uncertainty, to a species built on control, was intolerable. A summons humanity didn't want. The invitation arrived on Earth with flawless courtesy. The wording was immaculate. The tone respectful. The hegemony requests human representation to discuss emergent destabilization caused by cross-cultural behavioral anomalies. No accusations. No blame. Just implication. Human leadership argued for days. This is a trap, military advisors warned. They want to isolate us, diplomats insisted. They want to study us, strategists muttered. VA Corps was invited as well. So was the Kraith. And without consulting anyone, Noah Reyes was added to the list. Outrage, fear, and a quiet truth. Human officials protested immediately. He's a child. This is inappropriate. You can't put him in front of predators like that. The Threxian response was simple. You have already done so. That was the truth no one wanted to admit. Noah had already stood at the center of galactic attention, without meaning to, without protection, without understanding the stakes. He had changed things by being who he was. And now the galaxy wanted to look him in the eye. The journey to convergence. The convergence station was ancient, older than most active civilizations. A hollowed asteroid wrapped in layered rings of diplomacy, security, and memory. When the human delegation arrived, the atmosphere was heavy. Eyes followed them everywhere. Not hostile. Evaluating. The Kraith delegation arrived next. 500 warriors were not permitted this time. Only 12. But even 12 Kraith made corridors feel smaller. And then Noah arrived, holding Raytin's hand. The whispering started immediately. That's him. That's the human child. That's the one. Noah squeezed Raytin's hand tighter. Are they mad at me? He whispered. Raytin shook his head. They are afraid of what you represent. The Threxian argument. The convergence chamber was vast, circular, tiered. At its center hovered a projection of the sector, borders, trade lanes, conflict zones. The Threxian speaker rose. Tall, slender, scales like polished obsidian. Humanity, the speaker said, voice smooth and cold, has introduced instability. A murmur rippled. You form bonds where none existed. You alter long-standing power equilibria. You inspire irrational loyalty. The speaker's gaze shifted and locked onto Noah. You teach our children to question us. That was the real accusation. Humans didn't conquer systems. They infected certainty. When adults failed to answer, human diplomats responded with logic, with data, with assurances, with promises of restraint. The Threxians listened and dismissed it all. Unintentional disruption is still disruption, the speaker said. Your species does not understand consequences. VA Corps stepped forward. They understand more than you think. The speaker turned. Then let the source speak. And before anyone could stop it, a light illuminated the center of the chamber. Noah Reyes stood alone, a child under 1,000 eyes. The silence was unbearable. Noah's heart pounded so loudly he thought everyone could hear it. He looked out at the gathered species, giants, monsters, legends. And he felt very small. He swallowed. I'm sorry, he said. That wasn't what they expected. I didn't mean to cause trouble, Noah continued. I just saw someone who was sad. The Threxian speaker tilted its head. Sadness is irrelevant. Noah frowned. It didn't seem irrelevant to him. He pointed at Raytin. And it wouldn't be irrelevant to you if it was your kid. The chamber stirred. Threxians did not like hypotheticals involving family. The question no one wanted asked. Noah took a shaky breath. My dad says being strong means protecting people who can't protect themselves, he said. My mom says being smart means knowing when you're wrong. He looked up at the speaker. So what does being powerful mean? No one answered. Because power had always meant control. And a child had just challenged that definition. The Threxian fracture. The speaker responded carefully. Power means survival. Noah nodded slowly. Okay, he said. But surviving alone sounds lonely. A ripple of discomfort passed through the Threxian delegation. They were not unused to war. But loneliness? That was a word their language barely used anymore. Raytin speaks. Before protocol could stop him, I was unclaimed, he said, voice steady. I was strong enough to survive. But I was already gone. He held up the toy starship. This human did not give me a weapon. He gave me a reason. That broke something. Not loudly, but completely. The choice the galaxy didn't expect. The Threxian speaker remained silent for a long time. Then slowly it said, the hegemony will observe. Not accept. Not ally. But not oppose. It was the closest thing to concession they had ever offered. Aftermath, a new kind of fear. The convergence ended without war. But the galaxy did not relax. Because humanity had done something unprecedented. They had stood unarmed and forced the most ruthless empire in the sector to hesitate. Not through strength, but through example, the silence after the storm. The galaxy did not change overnight. That was the first mistake everyone made. They expected treaties, declarations, formal alliances etched into crystal halls and databanks. Instead, what followed the convergence was something far quieter. A pause. Ships still flew. Borders still existed. Wars still smoldered in distant systems. But something had shifted beneath it all, like a fault line settling after an earthquake. And no one could quite measure it. The children remember first. Adults debated policy. Children remembered faces. On K-317, human and Kraith children began playing together openly for the first time. Clumsy games, shared meals, broken translators, and improvised sign language. Kraith warriors watched in silence. They did not interfere. They remembered Raytin. They remembered what it meant to almost disappear. Across the sector, similar scenes unfolded. On trade hubs where humans had settled, alien children began approaching them. Not because humans were dominant, but because humans were safe. And that unsettled every empire that had ever ruled through fear. A generation raised sideways. Years passed. Noah Reyes grew. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just steadily. He learned to read star charts. Learned basic Kraith phrases. Learned that some species never shook hands, and others never made eye contact. He also learned something else. That people watched him. Not because he was special, but because of what he represented. The first human generation raised in the galactic community didn't see aliens as threats or curiosities. They saw neighbors. And that terrified strategists everywhere. The Threxian problem. The Threxian hegemony did not collapse. It adapted. They conducted studies, observations, behavioral models. And what they found disturbed them deeply. Human influence did not erode loyalty through rebellion. It eroded it through comparison. Threxian youths exposed to human presence asked questions. Why do humans protect their weak? Why do humans mourn enemies? Why do humans forgive mistakes? The hegemony responded the only way it knew how. With control. Restrictions were imposed. Contact limited. Human settlements isolated. But ideas, once seated, do not respect borders. VA Core's final lesson. VA Core flamebound aged. For Kraith, that meant scars deepened and movement slowed, but authority sharpened. Before his final return to his homeworld, he asked for one last meeting. Noah sat with him in the observation ring, much taller now, voice deeper, eyes steadier. You will outlive me, Vicor said. Noah nodded. I know. You may never wield a blade, Viacor continued. You may never command warriors. I'm okay with that. Viacor's ember veins pulsed warmly. You already taught us something greater than combat, he said. You taught us restraint. That word carried weight. Among the Kraith, restraint was the hardest discipline of all. The day the Threxians blinked. It didn't happen during a battle. It happened during a famine. A Threxian frontier world suffered catastrophic crop failure. Their models predicted acceptable losses. Humans heard about it anyway. Without ceremony, without announcement, human relief ships arrived. Food, medics, engineers. No demands. No leverage. The Threxian governor demanded explanation. A human captain answered simply, because letting children starve is wrong. The governor delayed response for 6 hours, then allowed the aid through. That delay would later be cited as the first recorded hesitation in Threxian command history. The uncomfortable truth. Galactic historians would argue for decades about when the balance truly shifted. Some would point to K317. Others to the convergence. Others still to the famine relief. But the truth was simpler. Humanity never tried to change the galaxy. They simply refused to abandon their values, even when it would have been safer. And that consistency, that stubborn, inconvenient decency, rewrote expectations. Noah's question years later. As an adult, Noah Reyes was invited to teach at a multi-species academy. He declined titles, declined authority. He accepted one role only, mentor. One day, a student asked him, "Did you know what would happen when you gave that toy away?" Noah smiled, the same quiet smile he'd had as a child. "No," he said. "I just knew what felt right." The student frowned. "Is that enough?" Noah looked out at the stars. "It has been so far. The galaxy admits it. Not in public statements, not in treaties, but in behavior. Borders softened. Wars shortened. Surrenders negotiated sooner. Because now every empire had seen it. A species that did not need to dominate to be powerful. A species that made enemies question themselves. A species whose smallest members could reshape the fate of giants. Time reveals the shape of change. History likes clean moments. A battle won. A treaty signed. A throne overturned. But the truth was Messier. The galaxy did not wake up one day and declare humanity special. It noticed gradually that things were different when humans were involved. Conflicts still happened, but fewer ended in annihilation. Disputes still arose, but more ended in conversation. Power still mattered, but it was no longer the only currency. And at the center of countless quiet changes was a memory many species shared. A small human child. And a simple act that should not have mattered, but did. Raytin's return. Raytin grew into his people's expectations. He trained as a Kraith warrior, disciplined, formidable, precise. His ember veins burned bright now, steady and controlled. But he trained differently. He fought fiercely, and stopped when an enemy yielded. He led boldly, and listened when others spoke. He carried the toy starship with him still, sealed safely within a ceremonial case. Among the Kraith, this became legend. They began calling him Flame That Waits. A warrior who understood that not every problem was solved by striking first. That alone changed Kraith doctrine more than 1,000 defeats ever could. The human who never sought power. Noah Reyes never entered politics. He never commanded fleets. Never led armies. Never claimed authority beyond what others freely gave. And yet, wherever he went, doors opened. Because species remembered. They remembered that humans had shown up when it wasn't profitable. That humans had stood between civilians and fire. That humans had treated enemies like people. Not saints. People. The Threxian admission. It came decades later. Quietly. A Threxian envoy arrived on Earth, alone. No escort. No ultimatum. The envoy requested a meeting with Noah Reyes. Their conversation lasted 6 hours. No recordings were kept. But afterward, the envoy issued a statement, the shortest in hegemony history. "We underestimated you. Not because you are strong, but because you choose to be gentle. For the Threxians, it was the closest thing to surrender they would ever offer. A galaxy rewritten by example. Children across the sector began telling the story. Not as propaganda, not as doctrine, as reassurance. When young aliens were afraid of the dark between stars, elders told them, there are humans out there. Not warriors, not conquerors, humans. The question answered at last. Near the end of his life, Noah returned to Outpost K-317. The station had changed. Brighter corridors, open plazas, children of dozens of species running together beneath the observation ring. Ray-Tin stood beside him, taller now, armored, respected. Do you remember, Ray-Tin asked, the day you gave me the toy? Noah chuckled softly. Hard to forget. I did not understand it then, Ray-Tin said. Why you would give something precious away. Noah looked at the stars. I think, he said slowly, humans are built to believe there's always enough if we're willing to share. Ray-Tin considered that, then nodded. The legacy that endures. When Noah Reyes passed, there were no statues, no monuments of stone or steel. Instead, across the galaxy, something far stranger happened. Children, human and alien alike, left small tokens in shared spaces. Toys, tools, handmade gifts, symbols of a simple truth. You are not alone. Final reflection. The galaxy had feared humanity would conquer it. They were wrong. Humanity didn't conquer worlds. They connected them. They reminded ancient empires, warrior races, and cold strategists of something they had forgotten in the long dark between stars. That strength without compassion is hollow. That survival without meaning is empty. That even the smallest hands can shape the fate of giants. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. Outro. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.